The research station hung in the void of space like a wounded animal, its exterior scared and smoking from an encounter that defied all scientific understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood amid the wreckage, a thin line of blood tracing a path down her forehead, her eyes reflecting a mixture of terror and profound scientific curiosity. 3 months earlier, she had been nothing more than a marginalized researcher, laughed out of conferences and ridiculed by her peers. Her theories about the quantum void, a cosmic anomaly that consumed entire civilizations, were dismissed as the ravings of a scientist who had spent too much time staring into the mathematical abyss. Now, everything had changed. The station's primary research lab was a chaos of broken equipment and scattered holographic displays. Emergency lighting cast a sickly red glow across the faces of her remaining team. 5 brilliant scientists whom now looked more like shell-shock survivors than the cutting-edge researchers they had been just hours ago. "Play it again," Elena demanded, her voice hoarse from hours of continuous analysis. Her assistant, Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, hesitated. His hands trembled slightly as he reactivated the holographic projection. The image flickered to life, stolen data from a derelict alien research vessel that had drifted into their scanning range just days before. The footage was horrifying in its simplicity. A perfectly geometric alien city belonging to the Crystalline Collective, a civilization known for its mathematically precise architecture, began to dissolve. But dissolve was too gentle a word. The structures didn't break or crumble. They simply disappeared, consumed by a darkness so absolute that it seemed to devour not just matter, but the very concept of existence. Embedded within the data was a personal log. The recording showed an alien scientist, her crystalline body fracturing like delicate glass, speaking with a desperation that transcended species. "It hungers," the alien scientist whispered, her translation matrix rendering the words in perfect clinical English. "It learns, and it is coming." Elena leaned closer, her scientific mind fighting against the primal fear that threatened to overwhelm her. The data was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Quantum signatures that shifted and changed, consuming entire star systems with a methodology that suggested something more than a natural phenomenon. "This isn't just a threat," she muttered, more to herself than to her colleagues. "This is an intelligent predator." Dr. Nakamura approached, his usual precise demeanor replaced by a barely contained panic. "The energy signatures we've detected, they don't make sense. It's as if the quantum void doesn't just destroy. It absorbs, learns, adapts." Elena knew what this meant. Every previous alien civilization they had studied had fallen to this mysterious force. The Zarkon Imperium, the Crystalline Collective, the Quantum Nexus, all gone, consumed by a darkness that left no trace. And humanity was next. Her communication device chirped, an incoming transmission from the United Galactic Research Council. She knew what they would say. They would dismiss her findings, call for more evidence, demand rigorous peer review. By the time they finished their bureaucratic dance, humanity would be nothing more than another footnote in the cosmic record. "We need proof," Elena said suddenly, startling her team. "Not just these recordings. We need direct evidence that can't be ignored." Dr. Nakamura raised an eyebrow. "And how do you propose we do that?" "Get closer to something that consumes entire star systems." A dangerous smile crossed Elena's face, the same smile that had gotten her laughed out of scientific circles, the same determination that had driven her to pursue a theory everyone else considered impossible. "Exactly," she said. Outside the station's viewport, the infinite darkness of space seemed to pulse. Something was watching. Something was waiting. And humanity had no idea what was coming. Captain Marcus Chen never wanted to be a hero. The CSS Horizon was supposed to be his final mission, a quiet patrol of the galactic rim before retirement, a last chance to drift among the stars that had defined his entire career. 42 years of space service had left him with weathered hands, a collection of faded tattoos, and eyes that had seen more than most could imagine. His crew was a carefully selected team of veterans. Lieutenant Area Santos, his second-in-command, monitored the quantum displacement sensors with a precision that bordered on obsession. Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov sat hunched over his station, multiple holographic displays dancing around his calloused fingers. They were professionals who had long since learned that space was neither romantic nor forgiving. The Horizon's mission log showed nothing extraordinary. Standard deep space reconnaissance. Check on remote monitoring stations. Verify the integrity of humanity's most distant outposts. But nothing about this mission would be standard. The first anomaly appeared as a subtle fluctuation in the long-range quantum scanners. Most captains would have ignored it. Marcus Chen was not most captains. "Zoom in," he commanded, his voice cutting through the ambient hum of the ship's systems. Lieutenant Santos complied. The holographic display expanded, revealing a distortion that made no sense. Quantum signatures twisted and warped in patterns that defied known physical laws. "That's impossible," Volkov muttered, his Russian accent thickening with tension. They were approaching what should have been a thriving Zarkon colony, a settlement of over 2 million individuals spread across multiple planetary systems. Intelligence reports from 6 standard months ago indicated a bustling, technologically advanced civilization. What they found was nothing. Absolute, perfect nothing. Not destruction, not debris, not even radiation. Just a void so complete it seemed to consume the very concept of existence. "All sensors," Marcus ordered. "Maximum scan. I want every piece of data we can possibly collect." The ship's advanced sensor arrays probed the empty space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then something moved in the darkness. A tendril of absolute black reached out. Not a physical object. Not energy. Something else entirely. It probed the Horizon's quantum shields, testing, feeling, learning. Marcus felt it before he saw it, a cold that transcended temperature. A darkness that was more than the absence of light. "Quantum displacement drive," he said quietly. "Prepare for emergency activation." Lieutenant Santos looked at him, understanding immediate and total. The quantum displacement drive was experimental, untested, more likely to tear the ship apart than save it. The darkness began to consume the space around them. Sensor readings went mad. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist. "Now, Lieutenant," Marcus said, his voice calm. The drive activated. What happened next was not travel in any conventional sense. The Horizon did not move through space. It moved between spaces. Quantum states flickered. Probability itself became malleable. For 3.7 seconds, the ship existed everywhere and nowhere. When they emerged, alarms screamed. Half the ship's systems were offline. Emergency protocols engaged automatically. But they had survived. They had survived. Marcus looked at his crew. Volkov was running diagnostics, his hands shaking slightly. Santos was checking quantum displacement readings, her dark eyes wide. "Report," Marcus said. "Sir," Santos responded, her voice trembling slightly. "We've captured something. Something no one has ever seen before." The data they had collected was more than just information. It was a warning. A message from the very fabric of the universe. The quantum void was real, and it was coming. Marcus Chen understood then that his retirement was the least of humanity's concerns. They were facing something beyond comprehension, beyond destruction. A predator that consumed not just life, but the very possibility of existence. And humanity was next. The United Nations Quantum Threat Assembly was not designed for moments of genuine crisis. Typically, it was a bureaucratic machine of endless debates, political posturing, and carefully managed international tensions. But today was different. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a holographic amphitheater, Captain Marcus Chen to her left, her data projections dancing around them like living nightmares. Behind them, fragments of alien civilizations dissolved into darkness, a visual testimony more powerful than any verbal argument. This is not a theoretical threat. Elena said, her voice cutting through years of scientific skepticism. "This is extinction." The representative from the North American Union looked pale. The Chinese delegate's hands were clenched so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Representatives from every major human settlement, Earth, Mars, the Jupiter colonies, the deep space settlements, sat in absolute silence. Captain Chen stepped forward, his military uniform a stark contrast to Elena's research attire. He played the recording from the Horizon's quantum encounter. The room watched as reality itself seemed to bend and twist, as an unknowable darkness consumed everything in its path. "Our conventional weapons are useless," Chen stated. "Our shield technologies are irrelevant. This is not an enemy we can fight with traditional methods." A young engineer named Kai Zhang, who had been quietly observing from a secondary console, suddenly spoke up. "Not entirely useless," he said. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces, pulling up complex quantum mechanical models. The room turned to look at him. Kai was not an imposing figure. Slight of build, with eyes that seemed to see multiple dimensions at once, he represented a new generation of human researchers. Born on the first Martian colonies, educated in quantum systems that most considered theoretical fantasy, he saw the universe differently. "The quantum void adapts," Kai explained, "but adaptation requires learning, and learning requires time." He projected a series of quantum state models that showed how rapidly changing quantum signatures could potentially disrupt the void's consumption process. It was a theory so radical, so fundamentally different from everything they understood about physics, that it bordered on science fiction. But in that moment, science fiction was all humanity had. The political representatives began to understand. This was not a problem that could be solved by individual nations. This was not a conflict that respected territorial boundaries or economic systems. This was about human survival. Within hours, the United Earth Cooperative was formed, not through diplomatic niceties, but through shared terror. Military budgets were consolidated. Research facilities across multiple planets were merged. Competing corporations were forced to share technologies that they had guarded for generations. Kai Zhang found himself at the center of a massive, unprecedented collaborative effort. His quantum adaptive material research, previously dismissed as an academic curiosity, was now humanity's potential salvation. "We're going to need to build something that can survive the impossible," Elena told him, her eyes burning with a mixture of scientific passion and pure determination. Kai looked at the dissolving alien civilizations, at the darkness that seemed to hunger for existence itself, and made a promise. Humanity would not be consumed. Humanity would fight back. And in that moment, the species that had always been defined by its ability to adapt, to overcome, to survive against impossible odds, began its most important transformation. The research facility was buried 3 kilometers beneath the Martian surface, a testament to humanity's determination to survive. Kai Zhang had been working for 72 consecutive hours, sustained by synthesized caffeine and an almost maniacal focus that bordered on obsession. Holographic displays surrounded him, each showing complex quantum mechanical models that would have looked like incomprehensible chaos to anyone else. But to Kai, they were a language more intimate than words. The quantum resonance armor, QRA, was humanity's most desperate scientific moonshot. Initial prototypes had been catastrophic. Test chips were torn apart at the quantum level, their structural integrity dissolved faster than human technology could comprehend. Each failure was another nail in humanity's collective coffin. But Kai saw patterns where others saw randomness. "It's not about stopping the void," he muttered to himself, fingers flying across quantum interfaces. "It's about becoming unpredictable." His team watched in a mixture of exhaustion and hope. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the observation room, her analytical mind both excited and terrified by what Kai was attempting. Captain Marcus Chen was there too, representing the military's stake in this impossible project. The breakthrough came at 3:47 a.m., Mars Standard Time. Kai's quantum stabilization algorithm wasn't just a piece of code. It was a complete reimagining of how matter could interact with quantum states. By creating a system that could change its fundamental quantum signature faster than the void could process, they were essentially creating a shield that was never in the same state twice. "Run the simulation," he commanded. The holographic display showed a test ship encountering a simulated quantum void manifestation. Previous attempts would have resulted in immediate destruction. This time, something different happened. The ship didn't just survive. It adapted. Quantum states flickered and changed. The ship's entire material structure became a dynamic living system that responded to the void's consumption attempts by constantly shifting its fundamental properties. "Holy shit," someone whispered. The international crew selected for the first live test was a carefully curated team. Pilots from nations that had been enemies for generations now sat shoulder to shoulder, their survival dependent on each other and on Kai's untested technology. Commander Sofia Reyes, a Brazilian pilot with a record of impossible maneuvers, would pilot the first QRA-equipped ship. Her co-pilot was Major Ivan Petrov, a Russian veteran who had spent more time in space than on solid ground. "This isn't just a test," Kai told them during the pre-flight briefing. "This is humanity's first real defense against the thing that's been consuming civilizations." The launch was silent, tense. Mission Control watched with breath they didn't realize they were holding. When the test ship encountered the controlled quantum void simulation, the universe seemed to hold its breath. The ship didn't just survive. It danced. Quantum states shifted. The ship's material became a living, breathing system that responded to the void's attempts at consumption by becoming something else entirely, something that defied the very concept of stable matter. Kai Jung had done more than create a weapon or a defense system. He had redefined what it meant to survive. Humanity was no longer just a species waiting to be consumed. We were becoming something else entirely. Evacuation was not a plan. It was a controlled panic. Massive Arc ships, each capable of carrying millions, rose from planetary surfaces like mechanical leviathans. Every launch was a potential miracle or catastrophe. The United Earth Cooperative had transformed every available resource into a singular mission: preserve human civilization. Captain Marcus Chen watched from the command deck of the primary defensive fleet. Around him, over 10,000 ships prepared to escort the Arc ships, each vessel equipped with the experimental quantum resonance armor developed by Kai Jung. Personal stories emerged within the chaos. The Rodriguez family, Alina's extended clan of researchers, engineers, and scientists, had been among the first to volunteer for the most dangerous Arc ship routes. They understood that survival meant more than just preserving individual lives. It meant preserving human knowledge, human potential. A collective of quantum researchers from the Jupiter colonies prepared their most critical equipment. Decades of research, petabytes of data, entire scientific archives were being transported. They were not just moving people. They were moving humanity's accumulated understanding of the universe. Indigenous communities from Earth's most remote regions brought with them something equally precious: cultural knowledge that had survived thousands of years of human conflict. Their elders carried stories, traditions, languages that represented unique human experiences. The launch sequences were a ballet of technological precision and human desperation. Each Arc ship represented multiple generations: pregnant women, children, elderly individuals who had lived through humanity's most challenging periods. Entire ecosystems were preserved in specialized cargo holds, seed banks, genetic archives, samples of Earth's biodiversity. Dr. Elena Rodriguez coordinated the scientific contingent. Her quantum research team had been instrumental in developing navigation systems that could potentially help the Arc ships avoid the quantum void's consumption zones. "We're not just running," she told the assembled researchers. "We're creating a map of survival." Kai Jung's quantum adaptive technologies were integrated into every critical system: navigation, life support, defensive capabilities. His work had transformed from theoretical research to the literal lifeline of human civilization. The first wave of Arc ships launched from Earth carried over 22 million humans, Mars released another 15 million. The Jupiter and Saturn colonies contributed millions more. Smaller settlements from the asteroid belt and deep space outposts added their populations to the exodus. Captain Chen's defensive fleet formed a living shield around these precious cargo vessels. Kura-equipped fighters moved in complex, adaptive formations that could rapidly respond to any quantum anomalies. Communication protocols were strict. Minimal transmissions. Constantly shifting quantum encryption. The fear was not just about the quantum void detecting them, but about the psychological impact of potential interception. For the first time in human history, the entire species moved as a single, coordinated organism. Not everyone would survive, but humanity would endure. As the last Ark ship cleared Earth's orbit, Marcus Chen looked at the blue-green planet that had been humanity's cradle. They were leaving behind everything they had ever known, but they were taking with them something far more important: hope, determination, the fundamental human ability to adapt, to survive, to transform in the face of impossible odds. The great exodus had begun. The battle was not supposed to be winnable. What human strategists had anticipated as a final desperate stand transformed into something entirely unexpected. The QRA-equipped ships didn't just defend. They fought back with a ferocity that defied conventional military doctrine. Captain Marcus Chen's tactical command ship, the CSS Indomitable, became the focal point of humanity's resistance. His crew was a mosaic of human diversity, veterans from every continent, every colony, united by a singular purpose. The quantum void approached like a living darkness. It was not a simple physical phenomenon. It moved with an intelligence that suggested something beyond mere consumption. It learned. It adapted. It hunted. But so did humans. Lieutenant Aria Santos managed the quantum displacement systems with a precision that bordered on artistry. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, creating defensive patterns that were mathematical poetry. Each movement was a quantum calculation, each defensive maneuver a complex algorithm designed to confuse and resist the approaching darkness. Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov monitored the ship's quantum resonance shields. What had begun as Kai Zheng's theoretical research was now humanity's most advanced defensive technology. The shields didn't just block. They anticipated. They predicted. They transformed. Incoming quantum anomaly, Santos called out. Her voice was calm, professional. Years of training had prepared her for moments of extreme crisis. The darkness reached out, a tendril of absolute nothingness that had consumed countless civilizations. Previous encounters had shown it to be unstoppable, a force that didn't just destroy but erased existence itself. But the Indomitable was different. As the quantum tendril approached, the ship's entire molecular structure began to shift. Not randomly, but with a precise, calculated unpredictability. Quantum states flickered faster than the darkness could process. The ship became a living system, adapting moment by moment. Where the darkness expected solid matter, it found probability. Where it sought a stable target, it encountered constant change. Marcus Chen watched the tactical displays, understanding that this was more than a military engagement. This was a fundamental challenge to the nature of existence itself. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's theoretical work became practical warfare in real time. Each quantum fluctuation was a weapon. Each adaptive response a defiance against cosmic annihilation. The battle was not just external but internal. Crew members fought not just against the quantum void, but against their own fears, their own limitations, cultural differences, past conflicts, personal grudges. All became insignificant in the face of absolute extinction. Quantum cascade initiated, Volkov announced. The ship's defensive systems were no longer just technological. They were a living, breathing organism of human innovation. Around the Indomitable, other QRA-equipped ships performed similarly impossible maneuvers. They didn't just survive. They danced with the darkness, turning potential destruction into a complex quantum ballet. Kai Zheng's algorithms had transformed military doctrine. Traditional concepts of attack and defense became meaningless. These ships were not weapons. They were living quantum systems that could reshape reality faster than the void could comprehend. Hours stretched into what seemed like eternity. The battle was not about destroying the quantum void. It was about proving that humanity could exist in a state of perpetual adaptation. "We are not a target," Marcus Chen said quietly, more to himself than to his crew. "We are a process." The darkness kept coming. But for the first time, it encountered a species that was more than just matter. A species that could change its fundamental nature faster than the universe could calculate. Humanity was no longer just fighting. We were evolving. As the battle continued, something extraordinary happened. The quantum void, for the first time in its known existence, began to hesitate. It was learning something new about the universe. It was learning about humans. The quantum resonance beacon was humanity's ultimate Hail Mary. Developed by a team that included survivors from every human settlement, it represented more than technology. It was a collective act of defiance against cosmic extinction. Weeks of continuous work, millions of computational hours, and the combined intellectual effort of humanity's best minds had culminated in this singular device. Kai Zhang stood in the primary research chamber, his body showing the toll of endless work. Dark circles beneath his eyes, hands trembling slightly from too much synthesized caffeine. He looked more like a ghost than a living human. But his eyes burned with an intensity that transcended physical exhaustion. "The beacon isn't just a device," he explained to the assembled team. "It's a quantum communication system designed to speak a language the void has never encountered." Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood immediately. This wasn't about brute force. This was about communication, about finding a way to interact with a phenomenon that had previously been considered incomprehensible. The deployment of the beacon was a suicide mission. Someone would need to manually calibrate the device at the absolute edge of the quantum void's known boundary, a location where reality itself became malleable, where the laws of physics began to break down. The volunteer was unexpected. Dr. Elena Rodriguez herself stepped forward. "I've studied this phenomenon my entire career," she said, her voice steady. "If anyone understands its potential complexity, it's me." The research team was divided. Captain Marcus Chen argued against it. Kai Zhang ran multiple simulations showing the near-impossible survival odds. But Elena's determination was absolute. Her reasoning was simple. This was more than a scientific mission. This was humanity's moment to prove that intelligence, adaptability, and pure human determination could challenge even the most fundamental cosmic threats. The preparation was meticulous. The experimental ship would be equipped with the most advanced quantum resonance armor ever developed. Kai's algorithms would provide a dynamic defensive system that could potentially keep her alive. "Think of it as a quantum conversation," Kai told her during the final briefing. "We're not just sending a signal. We're trying to communicate with something that doesn't understand communication as we know it." Elena's ship launched from the primary Arc ship fleet. Around her, defensive ships maintained a protective formation, ready to intervene if possible. But everyone understood the nature of this mission. She would be utterly alone. As she approached the boundary of the quantum void, reality itself began to warp. Sensor readings became meaningless. Time became fluid. Probability itself seemed to become a negotiable concept. The quantum resonance beacon activated. It wasn't a transmission in any conventional sense. It was a complex quantum state that carried information through the very fabric of space-time. Mathematical patterns that spoke a language of pure probability. Quantum signatures that represented not just data, but potential. For a moment that lasted both an instant and an eternity, something in the darkness paused. Something listened. Humanity held its collective breath. The quantum resonance beacon's activation was neither clean nor predictable. It was messy, dangerous, and utterly human. Dr. Elena Rodriguez didn't just fight the quantum void. She outmaneuvered it, using every bit of scientific creativity and human unpredictability that defined their species. When the darkness began to recede, It wasn't through brute force, but through an intricate dance of quantum mechanics, human innovation, and sheer stubborn will. The moment of breakthrough came unexpectedly. The beacon wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a shield. It was a message, a complex quantum communication that spoke a language of pure potential. Humanity's entire collective knowledge, compressed into quantum states that represented not just information, but the very essence of adaptive intelligence. Kai Zhang watched from the primary arc ship, his quantum monitoring systems working at unprecedented levels of complexity. The data streaming back was beyond anything scientific models had ever predicted. The quantum void, this cosmic predator that had consumed countless civilizations, was doing something unprecedented. It was learning. Not consuming, not destroying. Learning. Captain Marcus Chen understood first. This wasn't a battle. This was first contact of the most fundamental kind. Humanity wasn't just surviving. We were teaching an incomprehensible cosmic entity what it meant to exist. Elena's ship became a quantum beacon itself. Her consciousness, her very humanity, became a transmission more powerful than any technological signal. Mathematical patterns that spoke of hope, of adaptation, of endless potential. The darkness began to change. Not retreat, not be destroyed, but transform. Quantum states that had been used for consumption began to show signs of something else. Curiosity, understanding. A fundamental shift in how this cosmic phenomenon interpreted existence. Around the arc ships, the defensive fleet watched in stunned silence. Kai Zhang's quantum models went wild. Computational systems struggled to process what was happening. The quantum void wasn't just stopping its advance, it was evolving. "We're communicating." Elena's voice came through the communication systems, filled with a mixture of scientific excitement and profound wonder. "It's learning about us." Humanity emerged not just as survivors, but as the first civilization to look into the cosmic abyss and force it to understand something new. The great arc-ship fleet, carrying the entire human civilization, watched as the darkness around them transformed. Quantum states shifted. Probability itself seemed to become a negotiable concept. In the quiet aftermath, Kai Zhang and Captain Chen shared a moment of understanding. They didn't celebrate. They knew this was not an end, but a beginning. Somewhere in the universe, other threats were waiting, and humanity would be ready. Not with weapons, not with traditional defenses, but with the most powerful force in existence, the ability to understand, to adapt, to transform. Humanity had not just survived. We had redefined the very concept of survival.